So this vent is the Newport HT70. It's actually a very simple vent. It only has 3 basic modes of ventilation, and it's really easy to use and set up. The circuit is pretty self-explanatory, but this here is the exhalation valve, okay? So whenever you run this line, it needs to go to the exhalation valve port here, okay? And then you'll know that the other line goes to the top one. We really should have some bacteria filters on here between the circuit and the vent, and maybe I'll get some and send those over. It has a great battery life, 3 hours or longer. So if you're not plugged in, you can't get to an outlet, as long as it's been plugged in prior to use, which it was, the battery will last. So the actual on-off is on the back, and it's just a little switch that you push and it will turn it on. It takes it just a minute. It'll talk to you when it comes on.
Hello. Now starting up. Please wait.
So once it comes on, it's going to come up to the actual ventilator modes. I know someone had mentioned BiPAP. I don't know, you have a BiPAP, so I don't know that you could use it for BiPAP.
We have BiPAP.
Yeah. So this one is what we just use for ventilator. All the settings will be done here on the screen, and then this over here is a blender, and that's how you dial in your FiO2. So 21 to 100%, whatever it may be. And then once you get to the screen, you have your alarms at the top, which those are preset, and you really shouldn't have to mess with the alarms unless you're going to use it for pediatrics. Would you ever use that for pediatrics? Okay.
Well, I hope not. Yeah.
So if so, you really need a different circuit. We have a pediatric circuit that we use with this vent that has extra light pressure guards built into it. So, but if you do, there's actually alarms built in for pediatrics and for adults. But the main thing that you're going to do will be the modes, and the modes are here on the bottom left. There's only, and that's just telling me that I'm on battery backup, okay? So you can hit your alarm reset, and that will hush it for just a minute, and it'll do it again in a minute. But you have 3 basic modes. You have SIMV, which is what we would typically use post-op, where the patient will get a rate, but they can also breathe on their own. And then once they start breathing more on their own, then you would turn them to just a spontaneous mode, which would be the pressure support. And I think this one says spontaneous. So, and then your other one is your assist control, and that's where we're totally doing all of their breathing for them with the ventilator. And then you have 2 breath delivery types. You have pressure control and volume control, and it's really just whatever your CRNA or whatever they prefer. We use pressure control, but usually in any of the outlying places, they'll stick with volume. And then once you dial that in to what you want, you always have to hit the accept button. Anything you change, hit accept afterwards, okay? If you change the settings over here, your respiratory rate or whatever pressure control you want, always hit accept. Then once you look at the screen, whatever is in the center is what we're telling the vent to do. And when you put it on your patient, whatever is at the bottom is what the patients actually do. So in order to look at that, you would hit one of those numbers and it would bring up a new screen with all of the patient data. No matter what you do, before you put it on a patient, you must hit start ventilation. If not, and you hook it to the patient, they're not getting anything. So always hit start ventilation. Once you hit start ventilation, in order to get the machine to shut off, you have to turn it off. It will not just go back to standby like your BiPAP will do. So anytime that you're ready to maybe trial the patient on a T-piece or whatever you do, you would have to turn the vent off, okay? In order to get back to the main screen, you just hit the buttons here at the top to the main, and it will get you back to your main screen. Those are really the important things, or the settings, your FiO2. Anytime you have the alarm going off, it could be pressure, maybe the patient's coughing, it could be secretions. Probably unlikely for it to be secretions here, but that's possible. Most of the time it's just the patient trying to wake up and setting the alarms off. At that time, maybe change it to spontaneous and see if the patient's just wanting to do their own breathing totally. And that will correct the alarms, because if the patient is breathing on their own, it's totally safe. You don't have to worry about how much tidal volume they're taking. It's when we're delivering it through the ventilator that you have to worry about high pressures. So in order to turn, so once you start the ventilator, that's what it's going to sound like. If there's alarms going off, it will tell you what that alarm is on here. In order to turn the vent off, you have to press your power button again. It will say press accept to shut down, so you have to hit accept. And then it's going to set the alarm off until you hit your alarm button. And now the vent is powered down. What questions do you have?
Do we have to have,
Go ahead.
do we have to have, like specific anesthesia orders in order for us to change the settings, or can we just change the settings?
You'll need your orders from your physician or CRNA, whoever it may be.
In the beginning, you said which tube was which. Can you say that again?
Yes, so this is your exhalation port.
Okay.
Okay, this big bulky piece. So the tubing that is connected to it will go here to where it says exhalation valve, okay? If you get those switched, it's gonna alarm and annoy you to death until you figure that out.
Okay.
So I always, that's the first thing I do, is check my tubing to make sure they put it to the right place. Cause even as respiratory therapists, you wouldn't believe how many times they put it in the wrong spot. So that goes to the exhalation valve. The other one just goes to the proximal area.
Okay.
And so you dial your FiO2 just there on the right hand side?
Yes,
Okay.
it just turns. And then you have your oxygen
Look up.
tubing here that goes to the
There's not
wall.
an air tubing to
No.
you just need the.
No, not for this one. That's why it's a blender. It pulls in your ambient room air. So just O2 and a power plug. Any other questions? Do you want to look closer at the settings?
I think it'd be great if